All the roads are winding.
Hi, Liz. Welcome to the show. It's really super special to have you here. Welcome.
Thanks.
Before we dive into our conversation, I would love to hear, who are your ancestors? Lineages are you from?
Yeah, my mother's side comes from Ireland and Scotland, and my father's side comes from Germany. And there are a few unknowns in there, but that's mostly where I'm from.
Aha. Yes, same. I got some Scandinavia thrown in there. Cool. And where in the world are you, and who are the people of that land?
I am in Western North Carolina, right outside of Asheville. And the people who were originally here on this land were the Cherokee and who are still really close.
Cool. Well, this is a really special convo because we've known each other for a long time, probably 10 years now, I
Yeah,
think.
probably longer.
Wow. Very
Mm.
cool. From our days in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Mhm.
And today we're going to get into, I'm really excited about this because, like, as animists, so you're teaching our workshop in June, and, really unlocking creativity for people, helping them unlock creativity. And as animists who feel that, all of creation has some sort of sentience or spirit, I love that you work with color as having a spirit. And there's so much around your work with color and this relationship and connection. And, like, you channel paintings of, like, a color portrait of someone's energetics, not just like their aura, but like their whole energy, and you paint it, and the colors are just like I have mine, it sits back there. You can see it. My hair is a little bit messy right now, but love it. Like, I sit right here over here and look at it, and it just, like, I feel it. It's like such a beautiful reflection, So yeah, I want to hear, like, a little bit about your relationship with color, and, like, where did this even awaken for you? Has it always been present for you?
That's a good question. I feel like the realm of color really opened up for me when I learned how to paint, and that was in college. I didn't really enjoy painting until I took it in college and saw my professor paint. I think he was painting a donut in front of us, and so I got to watch him through the whole process, and then it all clicked in my brain, like, oh, this is how this works. Because before, our my teachers would be like, oh, here's this photo that you're going to work from, and just try to paint it. And I'd be like, ah, I don't know what I'm doing. I need more of like a visual clue of how to actually execute this. So that was how that all started. And
What kind of donut was it?
a glazed donut
Cool.
sprinkles.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, it was a fun way to learn how to oil paint because it was a glazed and iced donut. And so we learned how to use oil painting as like with glazes, and you can make it look very shiny and very just like a donut. Like you want to just take a bite out of this painting.
Yum. So that's interesting too, that, like, you didn't even come into being an artist and a painter in that way until you were an adult. That's
I've been an artist, I've been using a pencil since I was very little, but didn't really have much relationship with color. So I was doing mostly black and white portraits, like very realistic portraits of people in pencil.
okay. And so when you were painting, watching this professor paint a donut, then what was it that, can you articulate, like, what clicked for you when you were like, oh, I get it now? Like, what was it about how he presented it? Or I don't know.
I think just getting to see from start to finish, watching someone execute that, painting something that they were looking at. Uh, I don't know. It's really hard to describe how it just clicked for me in my head, but Yeah, it did. Yeah.
No, I mean, these kinds of processes of like when those moments when they click, that's really subtle and nuanced. And how does one even describe like, oh, suddenly
Yeah,
I just got it, you know, like
and, like, I think that's also part of being a visual artist is that I am not great with words, you know? Like, I'm great at drawing it out for you or painting it out for you, but actually describing it with my own words is something that I'm still working on.
interesting.
Mhm.
Okay, so fast forward to today and your relationship with color, you know, 'cause so there's so much going on. Could you just tap us into like, yeah, a little bit of your relationship with color as a spirit?
So, that all started with joining Earth Speak and being in the rituals that we started. And it really took off whenever our first one, you maybe probably remember this, but you led the art divination segment of it. And whenever you did that, it hit me. I was like, I can do this and I can lead this. And I have all these ideas now of what to do. And because I wanted it to be colorful and I wanted to introduce that part of it to folks that were in ritual with us. And whenever you did it, it was just like grab something, grab, your pen or your pencil, and you had us like close our eyes and see what came out. And I thought that was so fun and great because I love those kinds of exercises too. And whenever I started leading those and realizing, um, what colors wanted to say and how they wanted to come out, um, that was a whole new part of it. So I guess color really introduced itself to me when I learned how to paint, but color introduced itself to me in this new way during those rituals.
Okay, I just want to say I did not know that that's that point, so I did not set it up to appears.
No, yeah.
I'm thrilled though. That's cool. I mean, I love that, and I love how like it clicked for you, and then you were like, "Okay, can I lead this?" And I was like, "Yes, please."
Yeah.
So yeah, you just kind of something spoke to you. So like, you know, how did that evolve from there?
I think connecting the dots between feeling like um feeling this newfound connection to spirit and to my own power that I could channel things and learning more about my own intuitive abilities and my clairvoyance and just trusting what came through for me. And I think that whenever there was like a point whenever we were doing the meditations during the calls where I started painting instead of sitting in silence and with my eyes closed because I was so tired that I was always falling asleep. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start painting because I really, really wanted to be actively engaged in the meditation and because it was so beneficial for me. I didn't want to fall asleep. I know that's beneficial too, but I wanted to have uh, an art project going while I was doing it because it's such a visual representation of what's going on in my own brain, during that meditation and the channeling of earth energy. And so I would get to see what wanted to come through. And I think then using that, I wanted to I wanted to bring that into the ritual and like share that with people and help them get into that sort of like channeling mode with color.
Cool. Yeah. And I love that. I love that mod of like, you know, meditation doesn't have to be this sitting still and silent thing. It's like you can move, you can paint, you can, you know, and that's I think something your experience there and sharing that you started painting during our meditations was so cool because then I was like, okay, and now we can name that and invite people to like move and shift and make it their own. And it's yeah, it's all valid. It's all valid.
Yeah, it is like there's really something to be said about being in silence and just and closing your eyes and letting that what needs to come through that way. But if you're not able to, Because a lot of us, it's hard to, whether you're tired or whether you've got the kind of brain that just can't be in that space for very long. Painting is a meditation in itself. And so it's, you can paint and the thoughts can still just float by. You don't, it's hard to get stuck on a thought whenever you're allowing yourself to paint. I feel like that is with me anyway. I'm just speaking for myself here.
Okay, so you've been working with people, in our rituals and in various places who are feeling creatively blocked or stuck, or maybe perfectionism is getting in the way, or they start something and then they start judging it and then they can't finish it. And you've been working with people to help them with this. Like, what are you seeing out there? Like, what are you seeing happening in people's lives? Like, if you could describe, kind of like in an infomercial, in the black and white part where like the vacuum cleaner's blowing up or whatever, like what's happening to people? What's happening in their lives? Like, what does this look like when they're creatively blocked, that people that you're helping and working with?
I'm not really sure what's happening in people's lives, but
Well, relative to the creative block. Yeah.
yeah, well, I think with some people it's they let this stop them from creating. Like some people that come to the class are like, well, I used to paint and it's just been a long time since I have, and I don't really know why. Or, I just don't anymore. And they just don't feel like they can, or, when you feel that block, it's just, you're just blocked. You don't know how to let it out. You're going to be judgmental of what comes out because it's been so long, or you just feel like you don't know what you're doing. Some people, if you've never painted before, like my relationship with paint before I learned how to do it, I hated it. I didn't want, like it wasn't something that I was interested in doing because I felt like I didn't know how. So I feel like that's what's going on with a lot of people, or could be going on with a lot of people.
And like, what are they missing out on then? From
Oh, here's the infomercial. So
it is. I love infomercials, by the way.
so whenever you're feeling that way, you're missing out on the flow of life and the flow of infinite possibility. Like you're missing out on answers to questions. Like when you allow yourself to just freely let things flow out, then you allow for answers to come forth and you allow for new possibilities.
Right. That's like inherently like creativity, right? Like it's like that gets damped up and then it's like traps all the gunk and flow. Then you unblock it. Then you're like, oh, I'm flowing again. And like we're creative beings. We can't help but be creative. But there's so many things that happen in our lives and our societies that, throw some sticks in the river and dam it up. And
Right.
yeah.
It also, whenever if you can just let this flow come back out, it comes out in all different areas of your life. So the art project that you are passionate about might not be painting, it might be, cooking or knitting or whatever it is, whatever you love to do that's creative, your flow can increase with that. I feel like when I learn a different skill, it only increases my creativity when it comes back to painting. So whenever you try a new skill, whenever you try painting, it's only going to increase your creativity when it comes to cooking or when it comes to knitting or whatever it is.
And you mean by only increasing, it's not going to decrease your creativity, right? Not
Right.
going to. Right. It's
Right.
like, it's just net gain.
Right. Yeah. There's only more flow is going to be happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And, I think, I don't know, I feel like kind of like you're giving permission to people to value creativity for creativity's sake, because in this kind of productivity focused culture and society where we're like, okay, something's not worth doing unless it's making you money,
Oh, yeah.
or getting you status. Like that's the kind of, indoctrination we grew up in. And it's like, well, all these quote soft things like creativity and the arts and whatever, like they don't matter, but they fucking matter. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. You want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said about being creative just for creativity's sake, not feeling like you have to then turn this into your side hustle. Like it doesn't mean you have to do anything with it. I would encourage everyone to show it to the world, because if you keep it to yourself, you know, someone else, you don't know what you're going to be benefiting someone else. I'm not saying that right, but you
I
don't.
get you. You have no idea what impact your art or your creation is going to have for others.
That's it. Thank you. So that is so important, and I feel like, yeah, there's so much to be said for people to just let themselves be their creative selves, just for that reason, and to share it with the world. I feel like it's so important. Even if it's just sharing it with your kid or your mom or your partner or your best friend, like even if you only share it to one person and show them, look, this is something that came out of me, you're inspiring them to feel like they could do it too. And I feel like the world needs more of that. The world needs more people to just like, revel in that happiness of, look at what I did. This came out of me. I created this.
As you're speaking, I'm thinking like being creative for creativity's sake is both the medicine and the outcome of feeling creatively blocked.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's kind of funny.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. It's you know, this is I think about this a lot because I mean Earth Speak is inherently about helping people connect, and connection is a two-way street, which is like inside oneself, but then with nature, with earth, with spirit, and with others, with community. And just having run this community for 3 years now, it's so wild to see how the sharing piece seems to almost be the heart. There's like the getting started of like just making something and creating something for creativity's sake, and then the sharing piece. There's so many weird stories and pressures put on all these things, and it's scary. Like it's scary to share something because you could be rejected, you could be, and like to our nervous system that means we could be abandoned and die. Like obviously we're not going to be abandoned and die if we show our mom the painting we made, but that's like there's so much going on here. But then really it yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything you want to say to that? Because I feel like I'm
No,
just going to go on a whole tangent here.
I love that tangent because it is like, it does bring up so much stuff. And I think that's another really important piece to it is working through that, working yourself through the fear is so important. Like I can speak to that. I was so scared to start this one painting that I didn't do it for an entire year. And once I started it, it just flowed right out of me. And it was the most important thing I could have been doing at that time, like it was so funny. And I kept being like to myself, I can't believe I waited this long. So working past the fear is super important. And then it translates into other areas of your life too, just like everything. You can work past the fear in other ways, but yeah, and the sharing aspect, when it comes to sharing, like the synchronicities that happened whenever I started sharing in Earthspeak are wild and had opened so many doors for me. Just even sharing, that's the reason I'm on this podcast and the reason I'm doing the workshop, is because I shared things, and then I was encouraged by other members to like, they're like, Liz, teach a workshop. I want to do this. And that gave me the courage to then be like, all right, I'll try. Like I feel like I could do that, even though there's part of me that says that there's it's fear that comes up with it, right? But the working through that is so important, because if you don't, then you just stay in the same place. I feel like getting past the fear of the unknown and the fear of being uncomfortable or rejected or all of those things that it comes up in your nervous system, being scared, like getting past all that stuff is so important.
I feel like you've got, an inherent gift in kind of sharing and gathering, because, part of why we even met is because you had organized, I actually don't, yeah, I do remember exactly when we met, but I don't think this was exactly the reason why we met, but this really kind of helped bring our connection closer. Was you organized this cool, like, arts and crafts, like, marketplace in the street downtown Raleigh that would happen once a month, I think, right? And it
Uh-huh.
was so cool. And I was like, dang, how does somebody even like just create that? Like this. And
Yeah.
so like you've got this kind of like, there's something in you that is, not everyone just starts a art market.
Yeah, that was brought to me as an idea too, where Katrina was the manager and she just brought it up, and she said, Liz, do you think you could just do this? It was her idea, but it was my execution, because I was like, of course I'll do that. That sounds amazing. I'll throw that together. And it organically grew into this gigantic thing.
Right. There were people just, people want it, hungry for cool creations that people have made, and people hungry to share what they've made. But so in that, you've been through, that was like over 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And, you've been through a lot of different phases as an artist too, of creating and sharing. And can you take us back to like, beginning times when you were just working up that ability and that courage to share? And what did you feel like, and what helped you get through that to actually share?
So when I first started sharing my artwork was in high school, and I started doing portraits. And I thought they were the most fun puzzle ever to figure out how to get someone's face to look exactly like their face. And people noticed and took note and was very encouraging. An encouraging word goes so far when it comes to something that you're creating. So people would tell me, that's so great. Will you do that for me? And I was getting hired, I'd get commissions to do them. So that's, that was what got me to keep sharing, was just the encouragement from other people.
Where were they seeing this? Was it just like in the lunchroom or something, or an art
Yeah,
class? Like,
in my art class. Yeah. And,
okay.
and then, I think when I started my job, like after high school, I worked at this office company, and they, coworkers would see what I was doing, and they would they'd commission me to draw their kids. And yeah, that's how it started out.
Interesting. So people just saw you doing what you do. So it's almost like you were just in an environment where people were, and you were just doing your thing, and people were like, whoa.
Yeah. And word of mouth, people would
Hmm.
talk about it to their friends, and then they would ask me about it. Yeah.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love that. I feel like that's such a great illustration of just like why being around people matters. Like,
Yeah. It matters a lot. We are pack animals. And
mhm.
sharing your work. If you feel called to be an artist, that is the most important thing that you can be doing. You don't want to keep your work holed up in your closet or your studio. You have to show it to people.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty wild. Okay, so as you're an artist, but you're also helping people kind of unlock their creativity, not so they can be artists. I mean, they might be artists, but not for any point of like, okay, now you have to sell your art or become some whatever exhibit. It's just like unlocking that creativity for creativity's sake. What kind of process do you like to take people through? Like how does one, I don't know, unlock their creativity?
Well, I took a note from the format of Earthspeak and the rituals, and because I really loved getting into that inner space. So what I've been doing in my classes is I guide them on an inward journey. We go through like a meditation, and it's a journey to meet a creative guide. So I take you to this guide and allow you the time and the space to ask them questions and receive any answers that you need to receive, any messages that want to come through. And then once we're out of that space, we paint. And I'll give a demo, because it's really important if you've never painted before to actually see it, to watch somebody paint and go through like housekeeping. Like you have to put your paint in water whenever you're not using it, your paintbrush, you have to put your paintbrush in the water whenever you're not using it, or else it'll dry up, and like just things like that you wouldn't really think of if you aren't a painter. And after I give people a little demo of my process and how it looks for me, then I send them off on their own, you know, journey to just experiment and explore and ask colors. You get a chance to ask what color wants to come through right now. You're like looking at colors in front of you. And that's what I like doing. I like to just choose the first one that pops out at me, because I feel like that's intuition. You're choosing, going off of what you feel like needs to happen, and you just go with it. Just see what wants to come out and see how it can all fit together. So it's not painting in like you're not looking at something and trying to reproduce something. You're just allowing color to sit with itself and sit with other colors and see what happens. It's abstract. And but some students that I've had, some participants in my class, choose to actually paint things that they've saw in their journey, and some people don't. Some people paint something totally different, and that's usually what happens with me whenever I've done these journeys. Is I'll see things in the journey and I just take the feeling with me mostly, and then just go with stay in the moment, go with what colors want to come out when I'm painting. It really doesn't have anything to do with what I actually saw in the journey, but that stays with me still, the feeling of it, the emotions with it. And so that is what comes out in the painting.
Cool. Working with the colors of spirits, just what wants to come through. I love that. It's like you're just playing with these living colors.
Yeah, their own energies. It's really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like that you don't have to like put any meaning onto it. I think, a lot of people like to talk about like red means such and such, orange means such and such. And like colors can have meanings, but I think reclaiming that from like, okay, if you're feeling some kind of way, you have to use red, rather instead being like, okay, what wants to come through? And it could be red, and red actually could mean something completely different than love or anger or whatever, who knows? And
Yeah.
it's not about like, okay, we have to like, because I feel like there's so many people who are like, okay, I don't know, do you come across this? Like, what's your take on this? Do you have a hot take on like people putting meanings on colors?
I think that if people feel like putting meanings on colors, then that's fine. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. But I think that if you can allow the colors to speak to you without giving it that preconception, then you might get more out of it. And if you can attach your own meaning to it without having these like, preconceived meanings, because red is bold, and red, it will get your attention, and we all know, like, that's what it does for us as humans and animals. We're so when you see something red, that means look at it. It's like that's the color of our blood. So, but it doesn't have to mean that it's a warning, and it doesn't have to mean love. It can mean whatever you want.
I mean, I'm thinking like berries, and it means, sweetness, like eat me. But then
Mm,
some red berries are like, I'm gonna kill you.
right. Red mushrooms.
Red mushrooms, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the
Cool.
whole theory of color in itself is just so mind blowing and trippy that, it's totally our perception. It doesn't even, it only exists because our eyes see it. And I guess that trips me out whenever I think about it.
Right? It's really wild. Like, what is color without an eye?
Yeah, it doesn't even exist. And it exists differently with some people, some people are like quote unquote color blind and they see it totally differently.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about like art as a vessel for channeling too, and like your
Mhm.
experience in, you know, just channeling it. Like, there's no one single definition of what channeling is. Some people think of it of like someone going into a trance and speaking, and other people think of it as just, getting an intuitive download. And so I'd like to hear, what is your, experience? What does it feel like to you when you're kind of in that zone? And what is your meaning or story? What do you make of it? Like, yeah, just kind of
Uh,
outlining. Yeah.
What it means to me is getting into that space of only being in the present moment. And whenever I do, like, for example, when I'm doing these color readings for people and I sit with them and, we go into, I'll guide them into a little grounding and meditation and then sit quietly and I like just connect to their energy and see what wants to come out. So sometimes I'll see certain colors or shapes and things that want to come through with this painting. But most of the time, it's actually when I sit down to paint after I've like, ended the connection, like the actual connection with who I'm talking to or reading for, is that's when the things start to really come together. And it's really hard to describe with words, like the colors just sort of tell me where they want to go, and they tell me which shapes want to be where, and I just allow and trust what is coming out for me and that it's going to be beneficial for the person that I'm creating it for. So art as a channel can be so many different things, but for me it's a way of letting this unknown, this, like this universal intelligence, if you will, kind of speak through me through color. Sounds weird, but I'm just going with it because it can't, it came to me as something that wanted to happen and I allowed it to happen. And all of the experiences that I've had with people and doing it, they've they've all come out of it with a really positive, loving, like just like the way you described yours, like it's something you can look at and you love and you can smile and it brings you joy. Um, I feel like that's valid, and some people find it really useful for their lives.
When you're having this experience, do you feel, do you see the colors and shapes? Do you feel it in your body? Like, what kind of experience is happening inside?
I see them in my mind's eye. I see them, when I have my eyes closed. they'll they'll appear. Um, and when I'm painting them, when I'm actually sitting down and painting, it's it's more of like a communication. It's like a two-way communication between me and the paint that I'm using. It's hard to describe.
That's cool though. I mean, I love that it's a two-way communication. You're just
And it's almost a
yeah.
three-way communication, because I'm asking that it's connecting to the person that I'm reading.
Mhm.
So I feel like I would visualize it as like a flow coming from me, this other person, and these colors, and then coming onto the canvas that I'm painting on.
Right. And can you just outline, just in case someone doesn't fully get what we're talking about with this color reading, can you just tell us what your color readings are?
Yeah, I offer this. Color readings are like reading your own energetic, mm, reading your own energy with color. And so I connect with people, read your energy, and then transfer it onto I usually use a 5x7 piece of board that I've gessoed and paint onto it what I saw, what symbols and shapes and colors came to me whenever I was doing the energetic connection. And then whenever I'm done with that takes about 15 minutes. And then I take about another hour after we've ended the call and finish the painting. So I like consciously continue the connection between me, this person, and the color, and finish the painting with however it wants to, you know, be seen.
I really feel like it's a energetic portrait, and as a someone who, and just full disclosure, y'all, I bought and paid for mine. Okay, I'm not just like shilling here. Um, uh, it's like an energetic portrait, and like seeing it, it just like it's like an attunement. It like helps calibrate me to my true essence. It's so cool. It's like, oh, I feel back into my center, and like I'm making this hand motion of like my hands kind of pointing down in my center here. Like it just
Mhm.
helps bring me home in that way. I'm like, and it uplifts. It's so sweet. And like I think that speaks back to our back to the power of sharing. And like, of course, like this is like a commissioned piece. And I don't know, maybe every commissioned piece is a little bit of a channeled uh item.
But I feel like anytime I create anything, whether it's a commissioned piece or a piece that just wants to come out of me, it's definitely, I go into a space of where I just am in the moment. I'm allowing a channeling to come through. So even though it's supposed to, when I'm doing a commission, it's usually someone wants to make, someone wants a piece to look like something or someone, they give me an idea, but it's still a channeling um, of sorts. I I wouldn't say that I'm just sitting there like, um, I don't know the word, like just mechanically putting this thing down and making it into what it's supposed to look like and like a robot. I'm using it as I'm using my body as a channel for whatever needs to come through for this piece that I'm creating.
That's cool. So I think that speaks to earlier we are talking about like the power of sharing, and you just mentioned like it's when you're doing your color portraits, it's almost like you're doing it, it's a three-way conversation. You the paint and the other person, you the colors and the other person. And I feel like this is kind of a missing piece in the conversation around creativity and sharing, creating for creating's sake, creativity's sake, and then sharing not because you're trying to sell it or not because you need validation, which is like it's fine if you want to sell it or it's fine if you need validation, but also just sharing it just to like have the experience of like I feel like I'm kind of pulling these thoughts together here because from my own experience of creating and sharing, because like there's almost like there's this whatever we create almost has a life of its own and can go out forth and impact others. And when they reflect that impact back to us, we become this little like creative ecosystem that
Yeah,
just nourishes itself. And
I
like this,
love
I've
that.
experienced this so much with Earth Speak and with, you know, and then that gives me more courage to share some things that I was like hiding away in my heart and was like, no one gonna see that, you know, like, like, oh, okay. It's safe and it's fun. And it actually brought something to someone else's life. And like, then it brought something back to my life and it just becomes this whole like interwoven web. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Um, totally. It's so important to share, and it's not because you're trying to be egotistical about it. You don't, you maybe you are looking for validation in a way that it's just being recognized. It's almost like, you just said it, like the piece in itself has its own energy, and it's almost like it wants to be recognized and it wants to have its own relationship with other people. Like the energy of this thing that you created doesn't want to just be covered up and put away in a box or whatever. It wants to be seen by other people.
It's so cool. And then as a channel, like you're putting this energy into something that can then transmit that to others for them to receive it however they will. You know, there's
Yeah.
no like one right or wrong way or energy or anything. It's like,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
a loop of creativity.
right. And like even if something's like quote dark, you know, and you're feeling some kind of dark way and you share it, someone else might be feeling some kind of dark way and actually see that and feel like validated that they're not alone in their darkness. Like I feel like just really taking the judgment off of it has to be any one kind of way too, or like
Yeah.
imperfection or whatever. Or it's like, I don't know. I'm always telling our designer Jess, I'm like, I want to see your shitty like napkin sketches. I don't want to just see the perfect. I want to see the like, you
Yeah.
know, like because there's so much gold there that people don't realize. I'm like, oh wow, there's so much here already. Like,
Yeah. I encourage it too. I encourage sharing pieces that you don't think are very good, quote unquote. Um, because you'd be surprised at who connects with it. And I'm guilty of that too. Like I will think a certain way of pieces that I create, and I'll think no one's gonna like this. And then it's like the first someone buys it as soon as I share it, or a lot of people like it. It's not always the case where someone buys it, but it's funny how your judgment on something is going to be completely different than someone else's judgment.
right, right. Like as an artist myself, I'm being a photographer and now videographer. I've noticed a lot of times my favorite pictures that mean the most to me, I'll share them and they may not land for other people. Then I'll share other pictures and something that maybe wasn't my favorite lands for someone, but it's all like in that spectrum of like honoring, okay, what really, I don't know, it's cool. It's just cool to like experience and honor all of these different parts of the creative spectrum.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
cool. Well, what are you make really cool art, especially like with mushrooms and mountains and all kinds of cool stuff. Like, what are you getting into? What's really inspiring you these days?
I am always inspired by mushrooms. I'm always inspired by turkey tail mushrooms. I don't think I will ever get over that. They're just beautiful. And I am always inspired by the mountains. I love making mountain landscapes. It will never end. And I am inspired by trees. Um, I haven't made a tree painting in a while, but that's something that I'm so connected to that uh, I feel like that's always going to be with me. Naked trees, especially, where you can see their limbs in the winter.
Naked trees.
Naked trees.
I know there's such cool shapes.
I love seeing shapes within shapes on trees. Yeah, I just adore them. It's like they're my tribe. And I've also recently I've been inspired by people, which is different for me. I want to explore. Uh, I want to give myself that challenge of painting people because it brings up a lot of fear in me, and I feel like that's something that I want to explore just for my own sake. And so that's what I've been working with lately. I used an Instagram. I found this image on Instagram and I just fell in love with it. She's wearing this reishi mushroom headdress and she's got this fern necklace. And I was obsessed with it. I'm like, I have to make this into a painting. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. This is the one that I mentioned that it took me an entire year to actually begin. And so I finished that and I absolutely love it. And it's huge. And I want to do like 5 more of them. But instead of using other people's photography, I'm trying to make my own images and like set them up myself and come up with my own ideas, which is a whole other like list of challenges and fears coming up and, the whole shebang. But that's what's going on for me right now. And it's been really fun.
That's rad. That's rad. Yeah. Yeah. What kind of portraits are you wanting to paint? Or people? I guess I put portraits in there. People. What's
I think I want to do, I was thinking about archetypes first. Like, I was working with this Kim Cran's archetype deck and totally fell in love with it. And so that's been inspiring for me to do different archetypes like the river and the serpent and that I have a whole list of them. Um, and I want to use people. And now I'm thinking I even want to include animals, different animals to, convey the type of archetype. And whether or not the archetype comes through, that energy is in there for me, like the intention and the idea is in it. And whether or not people look at it and think, oh, that's archetype of the river, it's probably not going to translate that way, but that's the inspiration that I'm using to create them. So that's what I kind of want to work with now. Um, yeah.
That's cool. And when you're like painting with mountains and trees and turkey tail and all the different beings and elements, do you how do you sense, I mean, you even just said it yourself, like you just see the shapes in the trees and like, the shapes, you're just noticing the shapes. And so like I'm getting the sense that you are kind of always in this inspirational conversation with these different elements. Is there any particular way that, beyond just the patterns? I mean, you can talk more about the patterns and shapes you see, but like
Mhm.
how to take it there, how does the earth speak to you?
Yeah, I am in like a constant state of being inspired by nature. It's like a never-ending thing. And it's always in this back of my mind is always this like reel of things that I look at and I think, wow, look at the color on that leaf or this pattern that these leaves are making or these petals or this mushroom. And yeah, I notice every single little shade difference and color difference and sparkle and pattern that happens. And yeah, um, it's like a never ending thing. I am obsessed.
I feel you on that. I feel you on that. Yeah. I mean, there's just endless beauty. It's just so much beauty just from,
Just growing out there in my yard.
yeah, stepping outside or looking outside.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
The trees that like I live on the edge of a forest. So I literally just look out my window and there are all these trees out there. And right now it's covered in green. Like everything is green. And I'm looking out my window right now, looking at it. Um, so the summertime is a very different vibe because everything is green. You can't really see anything because the leaves just cover it all. But in the wintertime, that is the magic time for me because like, you can see the every limb that comes off of every tree, and you can start to make these shapes and these faces and these animals out of the ways that the limbs meet and separate and connect with other limbs. And yeah, I think that's where I get my most of my inspiration from.
Cool, cool. And then how has uh having children, you have two kids, they're
Mm-hmm.
still quite young, but getting older,
Mm-hmm. They're 4 and 7.
4 and 7. And how has that impacted your life as an artist?
Oh man, in big ways and little ways and all kinds of ways. They, once I gave birth to Violet, my first daughter, um, I had to kind of rearrange my whole. I thought I was gonna like have the nursery and my studio in like the same room. I had this like whole like, oh, it was gonna be perfect, and I was just gonna have this baby and create my art. And then I was like awakened to the fact that no, this baby really isn't gonna exist in my studio space, at least not with wet paint everywhere. So I had to adjust. I was an oil painter before that, and then I started working with acrylic paint, which I didn't have any kind of relationship with. So that was a whole new learning curve for me. And I took an online course from a gal who's in this area. Her name is Alina Hennessy. And so I took her like year of painting course and learned about acrylics and became comfortable with acrylics and just got a whole new view on how to use them, and they're amazing. I have to say, I didn't, just because I didn't know much about using them. The paintings that I use acrylic with are completely different than the ones that I use with oil. It's like two totally different animals, and they each have their own unique um their good things and their bad things. They're wonderful, I think, both. But yeah, then I had to really like adjust how quickly I could make a painting. So I would have like these 10-minute spurts of time or these like half-hour naps where I could try to make a piece. And it's ebbed and flowed. Once I had our second child, things really like got really busy. So there was a little bit more of like a hiatus in creating. It was more of like just finding the beauty in the day to day and trying to adjust to being a mom of two. And now that Noli's gonna maybe start kindergarten, it's like opening up this whole new space. And um, yeah, it's like I don't want to like really dive too far into the future. I'd rather stay in the present moment. But they have taught me about freedom and different colors like pink. Oh my god, they love pink. And I was not a pink. I am not like a feminine type of female. I like where like I love pink and purple and frills and all glitter. Like they love all these things that I could have cared less about first. And then once they started loving these things and really like, they just can't get enough of the pink. It gave me a whole new appreciation for these new colors. And I am forever in their debt for making me realize the wonders of pink because it's awesome. Like I'll never like glitter. Fuck glitter. Except for like maybe eco-friendly glitter or
I was going to ask about some like eco-friendly.
mica. I don't know. I don't buy glitter. So the only thing they bring home is stuff that they made at other people's places or at school. But I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, that's not allowed at home. So if you want to make that at other places, it stays there. Sorry. I put the hammer down. I've got that boundary up as a mom, and I got to hold it. I hate that shit.
I know you're just like flowing microplastics all
Oh
over the
my God,
place.
I know. And I tell them that too. I'm like, you know why I hate glitter? Because it's never going away. And I'm like, it's probably in your body. Violet had like, I'm going to get off on a little bit of a tangent here, but Violet had, she brought home this lipstick, this lip gloss that was glittery. And I was like, I don't know if I would be putting that on your lips. And she was like, why? And I'm like, because when you put it on your lips, it's going to end up in your mouth and then in your belly. And then she was like, oh, I'm not going to use this anymore. Like, you're a smart girl. Because, she's got to make her own choices, but I got to give her the information. Oh,
Yeah, you got to be their guide.
yeah. Yeah. I wish the glitter would go away. But I do like sparkly things now, if it's naturally sparkly.
It sounds like they really helped you tap into your sparkly side.
They did. Like the fairy realm, I feel like I've tapped in a lot more thanks to them. And like the realm of like magical unicorns and dragons.
I mean, your kids are so straight up magical, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Violet used to be an owl in her previous life. She'll tell you all about it.
I love that. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you ever recorded, like, just put voice memo on your phone and recorded her talking about that?
Oh, I need to record her like actually talking about it.
That
But
would be amazing.
yeah, I'll have to do that sometime.
Oh my gosh. Then you can play it back when she's older.
Maybe she can just write her own book about it because she's got a lot to say about this owl family.
That is so, so cool. I mean, I would like listen to that.
And now Magnolia's got it. She's got it in her story too. She says whenever I don't let her do something, she's like, she was a deer. So she's like, my mom, a deer, always let me do these things. And you don't. And I'm like, yeah, well.
That was that life. This is now. Sorry, kid.
Yeah, sorry. I guess your mama deer was a little more lenient than I was. Yeah, go to bed.
Oh, that's so funny.
Mhm.
Wow. Cool. So, as an artist, as a parent, and as a uh, magical person, just living in this beautiful world that you live in, um, what, if anything, would you like to leave people with, as they kind of process what we've been talking about and they go about thinking about like their own creativity and does it matter and what can they do with it and da 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 da, like what would be your parting words for them?
I think that trusting, if you get hit with some kind of thought that maybe you should try something, maybe you should, remember, you could do this. And if you find yourself thinking you're telling it no, or you're making excuses, or you're feeling like you shouldn't, I think my advice is you should go for it. And not just should you, but there's something behind the voice that's telling you that this thing that wants to come out, there it is. It wants to come out. And letting it might show you things that you didn't know were possible.
Love it. And then what do you offer and where can people find you?
I am offering in-person classes if you live in the Asheville area. These intuitive creativity classes in my studio in the River Arts District. And you can find that on my website. It's sassafrashillstudios.com. And you can find on the website, you can connect with me there. Soon to be offering online classes and offering little free videos on how to tap into your own color magic and creativity and those kinds of things.
Excellent. And of course, all that'll be in the show notes. And if you want to come um, play, just open up to what spirit has to say, what color has to say for you, then come join us in Liz's workshop happening this June 2022. I don't remember the exact date, but it's,
Mhm.
if you miss it, you can catch the replay too. So y'all come and join us. And yeah, thank you so much for being here today, Liz, and for sharing your color magic with us in our rituals of days past and coming up in our workshop.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
All the roads are windy.
Listen to over 200 free Earthspeak podcast episodes on your favorite podcast app and visit earthspeak.love to learn about our collective community and workshops.